I'm tying another wet fly from Ray Bergman's book, Trout. This is called the Academy. Pretty straightforward little pattern. I think it's kind of attractive looking. It has a nice red tip on the bottom of Floss, which is kind of nice, and the Peacock Herl body, which is always nice. Claret wing on this. One thing I want to point out that happened when I was putting the clear lacquer on, you'll notice right here that it just barely touched the wing, but the wing quickly soaks it up. This is why I started putting clear lacquer on under the black lacquer, because I noticed that with the black lacquer I'm using, it would get soaked up in there. Of course, then you'd have, it's all black. Now, I'm pretty certain that even when this clear lacquer dries, I'll have a darker spot there, but at least it's not black. I mean, it's a much darker claret. My hope is that on most of these, when that clear lacquer cures, it's clear. You don't really see it. It doesn't, it's not a blemish on the fly. Then the black, when the black goes on, it's going to keep, because that already has the clear there, it's going to keep the black from being soaked up into the wing. Now, I plan on doing a more in-depth video on this at some point, because this is something that has kind of come up in the last 6 or 8 months, my fly tying, and I've noticed it happening often, so I'm just doing some experimenting to do that video. So anyway, this is the Academy from Ray Bergman's book, Trout. I'll get started tying. Start the Academy with my hook and the vise. This is a Mustad 33.99 and a size 6 standard wet fly hook. I debarb that hook. There's a Peacock Herl body on this, so I could use a black thread under that, but it does have a tip of red floss, so I don't want to darken that up. So I'm going to start with a white thread. This is a Danville 70 denier in white. Already got some wax on that thread. I'm going to attach that about an eye length behind the eye of the hook and advance my thread down. Because there is a Peacock Herl body, I'm not as concerned about nice touching turns, but I like having a thread base on there. I think it helps the fly in terms of tying materials in and durability. I'm going to stop between the point of the hook and the barb of the hook, and this is where I'm going to attach my floss tip. I'm using a Danville 4-strand Rayon in red for this. I think the recipe calls for a scarlet. I'm going to attach all 4 strands right here along the hook shank. I'm going to pull this back so it's just inside the body there. I'm going to advance my thread down, touching turns, maybe about 6 or 7 wraps. 8 if you want a little bit longer on that. I think that's 9. Then I'm going to come back up. That just gives me a nice smooth base for the tip that I'm going to put in. Now, I'm going to tie, I've got all 4 strands here, but I'm only going to wrap 3 of the strands. The 4th is going to be used for security. If I were to tie all 4 of these in and wrap this down here, this floss body tends to, when you touch it at the rear portion, and in the course of fishing, the floss wraps here tend to come undone, meaning that they slide down the hook bend. To keep that from happening, I'm going to use this 1 strand here as a security bit, and that's going to go right over the top. I'm going to secure that in, a couple of wraps. And then that will keep that floss from loosening up and sliding over the bend of the hook. I'm going to trim this about the length of the body. There's a tail on the Academy, and it's just some red Hackle. I'm going to use some red schlappen for this, just some bits here. It's not, I'm going to get maybe about 10 barbs, I think, something like this right here. And I'm going to get those perpendicular to the rachis there to get the tips even. I'm going to tie this in a little more than a shank length long. You take the shank and add the hook eye to it. That's about how long I tie these in. I like them a little bit longer. I'm going to wrap that in. If there is any excess, I'm going to trim that the length of the body. Now I'm going to tie in my Peacock Herl. I'm just using 4 Herls off of a feather here. You could use some strung Herl if you want to. I'm going to tie those in on my side of the hook here. A couple of wraps to secure that. We'll wax on my thread. Keep wrapping forward to start securing all of that down as an underbody. I'm going to trim the Peacock Herl the length of the body. Keep wrapping this forward, touching turns just to collect that all down. Have a nice underbody. I'm going to stop an eye length behind the eye of the hook here. Now I'm going to wrap that Peacock Herl in. Catching that in, I'll secure that with a few wraps and trim away the excess. Advance my thread forward to behind the eye of the hook. I'm going to attach my finishing thread. I'm using a Danville 70 denier in black. Attach this behind the eye of the hook, advancing rearward, catching in the white and the tag end of that black. Trim those away. Then I can tie in the throat and the wing. The Academy has a throat of brown hackle. I'm using, again, just some schlappen for this. I'm going to hold that up so that the tips are just past, somewhere between the point of the hook and the barb. Tying those in, I want to be careful not to squeeze too tight there and mash down the Peacock Herl. Trim away the excess. Clean this up so that I have a nice smooth platform for my wing. The wing is just some Claret. So I'm using some goose because of the size hook here. Otherwise, if this were probably an 8, but at least a 10 or 12, I would be using some duck. I've got my slips cut out. I'm taking the right slip here. I'll place the left one on top of it from the other feather, pull that off. I want to match the tips up here. And then I'll take a look and see I have the left slip on my side is a little bit wider, and both of them are a little wider than I care for. I like them to be a little bit less than the gap of the hook. So I'll take my bodkin. I'll poke that through both of them. Get those out of there. Make certain my tips are still nice and even. Then I'll tie this in. I'm going to want the tips of the wing to go down about halfway past the tail. pinch and loop to secure that in, a few more wraps to make certain it's nice and secure. Then I can take a look at the wing. Got some broken tips right here on the barbs, but I mean, for a fishing fly, that'll still fish just fine. Now I will clean up the head right here. This is, you always work rearward from the eye of the hook. This is just to cover all any butt ends of material sticking out and clean it up to give it a nice smooth taper down to the eye. Flatten out my thread and I'll put in my whip finish. Cut away my thread and I will get some head cement on this. I got one little fiber hanging on there. Yeah, I wish I'd caught that. You can probably see it a little bit better here at this angle, but I've got a broken tip right here on this one barb. I didn't catch that before. Otherwise, that wing went in pretty good. So I'm putting some fly tight head cement on here. This is a thinner cement. It'll soak right in, seal up that head, and secure all the thread wraps. Then I'll come back and put 2 coats of a clear lacquer on there, as well as 1 coat of a black lacquer. Now you probably noticed I got some head cement in the eye of the hook there. Especially with as many flies that I tie using Peacock Herl, I always keep some cutoffs around the table so that you can clean the eye out real easy with the Peacock Herl. You just run that down through there and it'll just clean out any of the head cement that got down in the eye there. So there you have it. That is the Academy from Ray Bergman's book Trout. Thanks for watching today. Thank you for joining me at the Vise today. I hope you learned a new pattern, at least a tip or trick here and there. If you'd like to help Dress Irons, you can like, comment, share, subscribe, all those wonderful things for the video. You can also head out to dressedirons.com where you can buy flies, tools, stickers, and merch, or you can join a growing community over on Locals at the Dressed Irons Fly Tying Guild. You can also donate to Dressed Irons if you want through the link at the bottom of the description. I thank everybody for their ongoing support, as it really does help the creation of these videos. But what's important is to remember, only fly tying. If you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong.